Hello you lovely lot and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and I thought we could play around with some markers and some coloured pencils. And of course, with the absence of me participating in Mermaid this year, I thought a nice picture of Finley and Claudia would be the perfect subject. I'd briefly sketch this out beforehand because sometimes I just like to sit comfortably and do it rather than straight on the desk. It just means that my angles of drawing aren't too weird. I did most of the lining on this with the Unipin fine tip liner pens because I quite like them. They're pretty robust when it comes to markers too. And the paper I'm using is a 220 GSM cartridge paper by C. White of Brighton. Now, yeah, it's not the most ideal paper for using alcohol-based markers, but that just didn't put me off really. I do find this paper really nice to use with liner pens and coloured pencils, and I thought, well, since I'm going to be layering things up anyway, it won't matter if the markers misbehave somewhat, and you'll see just how much they misbehave throughout this video. Once all of that line work was done, it was time to add the first layer of colours, which is where these alcohol markers come in. I used the ones we had in the, I want to say, March scroller box, maybe the April one. I think it was the March one where we had the grey liners, and I just thought they would be great just for adding, I guess, the colour on the rocks for the background. And then the rest of the markers I use are literally just from a big old tub that I've got of mixed ones. There's Oohoo in there, Oohoo, that's so hard to say, as well as maybe one or two old Spectrum Noir ones which haven't quite died. Good old-fashioned Winsor & Newton Pro markers, as well as a few miscellaneous ones I've collected over the years. For me, doing a piece like this was a great excuse to go through the ones that probably should have been thrown out a good while ago. I have hung on to loads of them even though they were drying out or maybe the ink had run out, and there's only so much isopropyl alcohol you can throw on them before there's just no colour coming out. But I do find a project like this is a great way to clear out any unwanted or on their last leg supplies, and that's exactly what I did do. I wanted some gorgeous pops of colour on there because those rocks are pretty grey, and that's what I wanted, but I wanted everything else to really stand out, so using these really vibrant pinks and oranges just seemed to do the job. And of course the colour scheme of Finley is exactly the same as the sea and the beach, and to be honest, when I came up with that character a couple of years ago, it must have been subliminal, the colour scheme that I picked for her, so that's kind of what I've stuck with, although her design does keep changing. Maybe I'll settle on it one day. As you can see right now, here's a great example of a dying marker pen. I literally just about managed to get what I needed from this, but sadly after that it was just starting to die. And I do store them properly, I do keep them all horizontally, there's no ink sort of landing at one end of the pen or anything like that. It is just a sad fact that sometimes your art supplies just die. So why did I use this cartridge paper and what did I not like about it? Okay, it's not really a review on the paper as such, but it's definitely about being practical here. Normally when I do marker based work I use the Canson The Wall paper, and that really can take a lot of punishment. It really can. You can throw all sorts at it. It is practically indestructible, although it does tear. Not that I've been, I don't know, abrasive enough to tear the paper, but it does tear, but everything else it pretty much handles. However, it's a really smooth paper, and not in a good way, I don't think. It doesn't really have much of a tooth on there to get the most out of a coloured pencil. And that's okay, because mainly that is the medium I wanted to work with on here. The marker pens are literally just to make sure I don't have any little white gaps on the page. As you'll notice though, especially around the visible hand on Finley and on her chest area, the colours did really spread in that paper that I'd used. It's thirsty, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Most of it can be repaired with coloured pencils. I best actually mention as well, my hands and arm are pretty bruised. There's nothing bad behind it. I've been gardening, I've been playing with the dog, and I am just that person who bruises very easily. I used to do taekwondo and I wouldn't feel any injuries or anything as such, but I would come out bruised and not even had been doing any sparring or anything like that. So please don't worry, I just bruise easily, and I've been doing a lot of stuff where I get caught and knocked, and that's all there is to it. I just thought I'd let you know. Can any of you guys relate to that? Are you somebody who just has to look at a limb and there's a bruise there? Let me know down below. Please don't just let it be me. Anyway, that aside, let's carry on talking about the picture. So normally, or lately at least when I've been doing coloured pencil work, I've been using the alcohol-based blender pens, those Derwent ones, and they are perfect for smoothing out your coloured pencils. However, I had to take into consideration that there is a layer of alcohol ink beneath the coloured pencils there, and I don't particularly want that to be interfered with. So using a Derwent, and I think I've got a Rembrandt one, and I might even have a Koh-i-Noor one. The blending and burnishing pencils are your friend if you just want to smooth that colour out a little bit more. And I suppose I'd better mention as well, the coloured pencils I'm using are the Castle Arts, and that's the Kandinsky set. Again, really nice, lovely colours in there, as well as the random odds and ends that I've got through Scrawlerbox and Upcrate over the years, and as well a few Prismacolors which just can't justify keeping in a tin anymore, so they just live in the pencil case too. There's a bit of variety, nothing definite as such. By using these coloured pencils, I was able to get really nice textures on Finley's body where her scales were, and that was literally just a case of adding lots of tiny little circles in different shades of blues, whites and blacks to get that sense of depth there, as well as that gorgeous texture. And although my like for coloured pencils has sort of been reignited, and I do dabble now and then in marker pens, I'd actually forgotten what a great combination these two mediums make. It's really nice not to have to worry about the white of the paper peeping through, because that ink's got it covered, and unlike water-based pens and markers, it doesn't chew the paper up. I mean, it spreads, but it doesn't chew the paper up, so I'm okay with that. And using the coloured pencils with it really complements it too. You can get some nice matches of colours if you need to, especially like on Finley's hand, where I've tried my utmost best to try and erase that spread of ink, and I don't think I've done a terrible job. As well as it allows you to have a more forgiving blend of colours when you're just using your coloured pencils on a certain area. For example, on the beach, it's quite easy and it's quite a pleasant process actually, just blending those 2 to 3 different colours out, so we've got some variation of tone on there. I do recommend, if you're going to use highlight colours though, for example your whites, make sure you've got a really good quality white coloured pencil for that. And if needs be, don't be afraid to use a bit of white ink or a gel pen or even a Posca pen. It should be okay. I really liked as well that all that line work I'd put down hadn't been lost underneath layers of coloured pencils, because I didn't really quite need to go right to the edge there, so I wasn't obscuring any of those black lines that I'd put down, which is good. And as well, that had its advantages, especially for using the black coloured pencil. It just meant I could extend some of that line work out and create and cast some nice shadows there. So all in all, a nice combination. I think I'm probably going to have to research the paper a little bit more, but for the time being I'll still use the heavy cartridge paper, especially for this combination. So if you're still watching at this point, thank you, I do very much appreciate it, and I just kind of want to fill you in of where I've been all week. So Obviously, I'm going to be making a video using the peerless watercolours, and it's going to be quite a long video. It's not going to be ridiculously long, but I am trying a slightly longer format, as well as keeping the regular length videos in, of course. I've been playing along with those and comparing them with the Viva watercolour paper, as well as perhaps coming to some theories of my own, which will be explained in that video. Also this week, it is my birthday. In fact, as you're watching this, my birthday will have been yesterday, and I'm filming it, and well, I'm voicing it on my birthday today, so I am still dedicated. I've just been very busy. And of course, these past couple of years during my time on YouTube, we've all been in lockdown, so I've kind of been used to just being able to churn them out and not being able to see anyone. Well, this year it's been a lot easier to see some of my friends, so naturally I've gone and caught up with those too. So I hope you can forgive me for just taking a little bit of time out for these things, but I am back and I've still been doing arty stuff in the background. That just never stops with me. But anyway, I'm borderline waffling here. Let's carry on talking about the picture. So for the rocks, I did initially put a layer of grey down, and I did introduce just ever so subtly some colours in there, like a few browns, as well as the black to add the tone, and a few lighter areas using a white coloured pencil. I don't feel like I could have achieved this using markers alone. I think it probably would have looked a little bit too smooth, and don't get me wrong, I love a nice flat opaque finish on a piece when it's deemed necessary, but for this one I just wanted there to be textures and variations. I mean, before I started adding the coloured pencil, it was down very neatly and very clinically, but didn't quite go with all that line detail I'd put in there, so I guess that's an advantage of using coloured pencils there. It was quite interesting as this image was evolving in front of me as well. It kind of reminded me of some illustrations from children's books I'd read back in the 80s, and it kind of got me thinking, I wonder if they used similar mediums back then. I obviously know that watercolours and gouache were really good and really popular for illustrators back in the day, at least for coloured illustrations, but I do wonder if they did use the marker and coloured pencil combination. I also remember as well, actually, coming to think of it, and I might do a bit of a love letter kind of video to this style of illustration, but you know, your regular paperbacks where it was mostly text and it was aimed at older children, maybe pre-teens. Well, I used to love the Colin Dan Animals of Farthing Wood series, and I absolutely adored each chapter would have a plate drawing pressed onto it. I don't know, I'll have to show that in the video. And I absolutely adored them, and they kind of got me into the art. I would very much like to try and do a style of illustration like that, just to see how it goes. And well, if you want me to do a video on that and share my thoughts as I go along, just let me know down below. But for me, I just thought they were quite charming and nostalgic. So most of the details had been filled in on the larger areas of the picture, and it was just time to finish off Finley's skin tones and highlights, and I thought by adding a few red tones in there just added a nice, I guess, peachy glow. A red tones peachy glow. You know what I'm trying to say here. And for the background, or at least for the sky, I did leave that purposely clear and didn't add any markers to that because I actually didn't mind a little bit of the white peeping through. I obviously wanted there to be a difference between the sky and the sea there. And I just very lightly kept layering it up. I didn't use the blending pencils or anything, I just left it as is, and I'm quite happy with how that was turning out. I did use the white pencil, I guess, in place of a blender, but it was fine as it was. It didn't really need overly working into, and I think it probably wouldn't have made any difference anyway. For the white highlights, I used the liquid coloured pencil that arrived in a scroller box 12 months ago, and I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. It feels retro, it feels charming, it's colourful but not overly saturated at the same time. I'm really happy with it. But of course, I would love to know what you guys think down below. If you've enjoyed this video, there should be some more on screen any second now that I think you're going to enjoy, so please click one of them and support the channel. I also want to say thank you so much for watching, because that also supports me too. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you lovely lot very soon. Bye!